Hi, this is John from Faith 101, and today is our third series in what Christians can learn from other faiths, religions, philosophies. We're actually going to be talking about science today and what Christians can learn from general relativity. Now, in order to talk about this, we have to go way back to the beginning of the Bible, way before general relativity, which was formulated in 1915. We have to go back to thousands of years ago, to the story of Cain and Abel. Now, Cain and Abel were brothers, and Cain was the less favored of the two brothers, and he didn't like that, and so he decided he was going to kill Abel. And in the Old Testament, this is the first murder. And so there's this famous encounter where Cain goes before God, and God says, "Where's your brother?" And Cain says, "I am not my brother's keeper." And Cain is struck down with a curse and has a terrible life. And the message in this, of course, is that we are our brother's keeper, that we are connected, all of us. It's not just about your brothers, it's about everybody. So now we skip hundreds of years into the future, and we get to the hundreds BC, and we run into a guy named Euclid. Now, Euclid was a very clever guy who came up with a lot of the basic ideas of geometry, and really the essential nature of what we think of as three-dimensional space. And that's kind of how we all, or most of us, think about space these days. And then we go hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years into the future, into the Enlightenment, and we run into our old friend, Sir Isaac Newton. And Sir Isaac Newton is hanging out in Cambridge because the plague's on and you can't really do what you're supposed to do, so he's just hanging out, and he's famously by an apple tree and an apple falls. Now, what we're led to believe in the sort of popular mythology of it is that Isaac Newton sees an apple fall and goes, universal gravitation. That's not what happened. Actually, what happened is a lot cooler. Apple falls, Isaac Newton looks up, and he sees the moon, because it's this period where you can see the moon during the day. And he wonders, does the moon fall? Which is, imagine that, does the moon fall? You've got to be quite a clever person to ask that, and an unbelievably clever person then to work out the facts of that, because what Isaac Newton actually eventually concluded was that the moon does fall. It just happens to be traversing at the same rate it's falling, creating an orbit. So it's going around, it's going out and falling at the same speed. The implications of this are massive, and the essentially important thing is that we're all connected. You go back to Cain and Abel, like the story of Cain and Abel is we're all connected. Well, Newton comes along and says, not only are we all connected, we're all connected literally. So when an apple falls, it falls because it's attracted to the earth. And the amazing conclusion that Isaac Newton had to come to was that actually the earth is attracted to the apple. On an infinitely smaller scale, but it is. And everything is attracting everything. Anything with mass creates gravitation. And this is amazing. And Newton was really frustrated by this because he felt like he discovered something that was true, but then he was really frustrated by the idea that there's empty space and that there's nothing in this empty space kind of conveying this attraction. And I can't remember the exact quote, but he says something like, anybody who'd look at my theories could see they're obviously preposterous, because how could things attract each other through nothingness? And so then we move into the future and we get to 1915, and Einstein comes up with the idea of general relativity. And general relativity borrows the idea of space-time, which was formulated in 1908. And this takes three-dimensional space as we know it, but also includes time as an element of this. And so not only are we all connected in a physical sense, we're also all connected in a temporal sense. So we're literally completely connected with everything that ever has been and ever will be. And that sounds like a godly principle, doesn't it? I mean, whatever you do affects space-time, and everybody is knitted into space-time. And you can see this on a minute level where, things you do affect people around you. But I think when you look at things like, the butterfly effect, where something happens over here and has this small effect which ripples and ripples and ripples and then arrives at you as this massive effect, that's not just philosophy, that's woven into physics, that's woven into, I think, scriptural truth. And so when we look at the fabric of space-time, it really does go back to Cain and Abel. We are connected, and we're connected profoundly. And our responsibility to each other isn't just philosophy, it isn't just metaphor. It's part of physics, it's part of reality. And so here we can see the godly principle of interconnectedness working as a scriptural truth, as a truth of how we are supposed to live and feel about each other as people. But, it's also something you can study. There's formulas and equations to relate ourselves to it. God reveals himself in many, many, many ways. And if God created the universe, it only makes sense that God's ideas of how we should be reflected in creation. Thanks for watching.